INTPs are widely considered one of the smartest personality types, and because of this, you might assume that they're masters at productivity and are always getting way more done than the rest of us. But in fact, people with this personality are actually known to be huge procrastinators. Today on Charisma, we're going to take a look at the 10 reasons INTPs procrastinate so much. Let's start by breaking down what the INTP acronym stands for. Introversion, I. The first dimension refers to how you get your energy. If you're an introvert, you get recharged from being by yourself. Meanwhile, being around others drains your batteries. Intuition, N. Would you consider yourself more of an imaginative or a fact-based person? If it's the former, you have intuition as your second dimension. Thinking, T. Do you push emotions aside when you make decisions, or do you let them rule your decision-making process? If you prefer to form conclusions based on facts and logic over your feelings, you can count thinking as your third dimension. Perceiving, P. Those with the perceiving dimension have a go-with-the-flow, spontaneous attitude towards life and planning. They see schedules as flexible, not rigid. So, what makes this type such procrastinators? Number 1, they're perfectionists. Have you ever heard the quote, "Perfect is the enemy of good"? People who are perfectionists often have a hard time getting things done because they want them to be perfect. However, in most cases, perfection doesn't really exist, and as a result, those who strive for it never really find it. INTPs fall into this trap, as they're known for being perfectionists. While this means that they care about the quality of their work, it also means that they are more prone to procrastination as they delay considering something ever finished due to their desire to make it perfect. For instance, in school or at work, an INTP might labor over a presentation they're putting together for days, only to delay handing it in on time because they're so focused on making sure every detail of it is just right. Or they might put off starting the presentation altogether because they're so anxious about making it perfect. Number 2, they're analytical. If there's one thing you should know about INTPs, is that they are highly analytical. There's nothing that this type enjoys more than spending time in their own thoughts, dissecting various theories and facts. The analysis comes into play when it comes to decision making. Due to their thinking dimension, this personality type makes decisions based on careful thought. In fact, they like to analyze every little detail before coming to a conclusion about something. As you might have guessed, their tendency to overanalyze can lead to what's known as analysis paralysis, or overthinking a situation so much that they can't even come to a decision. An INTP analyzing whether they should quit their job might consider so many different outcomes that they get overwhelmed and lose sight of the original question. They might worry that if they quit their job, they could go into financial ruin, lose friendships and relationships, or, on the flip side, find tons of success and be happier than ever before. As you can imagine, all of these different scenarios can crush an INTP's ability to come to a conclusion. As a result, they often procrastinate decision-making. Number 3, they daydream. INTPs have intuition as their second dimension, contributing to their highly imaginative nature. Those with intuition are more likely to use thought as a problem-solving tool rather than hands-on experience. Types with intuition are also more likely to spend lots of time in their heads. INTPs certainly fall into this and are especially prone to daydreaming. Their brains are so active that they're seemingly always lost in their thoughts. If you've been around INTPs often, you're probably familiar with the feeling that they weren't fully present with you because they were so caught up in their own thoughts. While an INTP's ability to daydream is why this type finds success in areas like science and math, as it gives them the ability to think through a problem in great detail, it also means that their priorities often fall to the wayside. INTPs have the tendency to think more about getting something done than actually taking the steps to do so. And when they lack follow-through, this can lead to them procrastinating. Number 4, they're unorganized. Remember at the start of the video when we talked about the INTP's last dimension, the P, or perception? People with this dimension are more of a go-with-the-flow type and don't see deadlines as rigid benchmarks that they need to hit. That's because they view schedules and overly organized atmospheres almost as a block to their creativity. However, this can become problematic when it comes to hitting deadlines. An INTP might unintentionally put off an assignment or studying for a test simply because they reject the organization skills that would be needed to properly plan for it. This means that their disorganization manifests as procrastination. Number 5, they're process-oriented. Some people are super results-oriented. They want nothing more than to make things happen and to tick their achievements off their to-do list. INTPs are not these people. In fact, they value process over outcomes. And while this often means that they're great at finding the right solution to a problem, they're not always the fastest at arriving at the solution. In fact, they might put off getting a task done if they're spending more time analyzing different aspects of it than doing the actual work to complete it. Number 6, they're impatient. If you've ever worked with an INTP on a group project, you probably noticed that they were impatient, especially with those working slower than them. Because their minds work at such a rapid pace, nothing in the real world seems fast enough to keep up with them. You might think that because they're so impatient, INTPs must get things done as fast as possible, but it's actually the opposite. Because they're impatient, INTPs actually end up pushing things off that take longer because they know that they're not going to be able to get them done as fast as what's ideal. Recent studies have similarly shown a positive correlation between procrastination and impatience, and even found that impatient people are more likely to procrastinate. And when it comes to INTPs, this is definitely the case. Number 7, they're forgetful. INTPs are one of the most analytical of all the Myers-Briggs personality types. This trait, coupled with their introversion, means that INTPs spend a huge portion of their days in their heads. They might be analyzing the solution to a problem, dissecting a theory they heard, or merely reviewing facts about a subject of interest. And while there's nothing wrong with this on the surface, if an INTP doesn't control their thoughts, they can easily become forgetful, particularly when it comes to deadlines. It's not uncommon for an INTP to dive deep into a subject matter of interest, only to merge from their thoughts hours later realizing that they forgot to complete an assignment for school or completely let slip that they were supposed to email a project to their boss. This isn't so much an intentional form of procrastination as an unintentional one, as their forgetfulness can cause INTPs to inadvertently delay something they were supposed to get done. Number 8, they're afraid of failing. It might also surprise you that INTPs are afraid of failing. You might even assume that because they're so smart, they probably have a lower chance of failure than the average person, so it would seem strange that they would be so afraid of this. But even if this is true, INTPs are in fact terrified of failing. This is in part due to their self-doubt and also because they have such high expectations for themselves. INTPs want to be the best at what they do, but on the flip side, they also don't want to fail on the way there. Unfortunately, this can lead them to frequent procrastination. That's because if they never put anything out into the world or take risks, they likely won't fail. In this way, their procrastination becomes a way of safeguarding against failure. At school, for instance, an INTP might have the desire to apply for a competitive academic scholarship. However, they might put off ever applying to it because they are driven by their fear of not winning the scholarship and what that failure might do to their self-image. Number 9, they're easily bored. Albert Einstein, Thomas Jefferson, Abraham Lincoln, Marie Curie. What's the link between these 4 people? They're all INTPs, and they're also some of the smartest people to ever walk the face of the earth. Because of their intelligence, INTPs can get easily bored. Their minds work a mile a minute, and sometimes the pace of ordinary day-to-day life can feel just completely dull to them. Furthermore, INTPs have a low tolerance for boredom, and the fact that they know they're smarter than most people can mean that they're very arrogant. This can result in them putting off tasks that they find boring, either because they simply don't want to be bored or because they believe that boring tasks are beneath them. This attitude applies to both short-term and long-term projects. While an INTP might reject completing a smaller project because they anticipate being bored by it, they might also start a longer-term task with enthusiasm and then put off completing the task when they grow bored. Number 10, they doubt themselves. While INTPs are one of the most intelligent of the Myers-Briggs personality types, they don't seem to always recognize this. In fact, this type is often their own harshest critic. That's because they have high expectations for themselves, and sometimes they set these expectations so high that they're not sure they'll ever be able to live up to their own demands. At work, for example, an INTP might volunteer to take the lead on a project, but after offering to initiate it, they might become crippled with anxiety and self-doubt as to whether they can do an adequate job. They might worry that they overestimated their abilities or that someone else was better cut out for the role. This doubt about their capabilities may cause them to put the project on the back burner because they're so concerned about their ability to execute it. And ultimately, a lack of confidence in themselves leads them to procrastinate, starting it all together. What about the dark side of the INTP? Watch this video to learn about that.